Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
Welcome, everybody, to episode, I believe, 104 of Two Goalies, One Mic. Free Agent Frenzy Edition. I know a cliche title, but, I mean, I'm pretty dumb, so I couldn't think of anything better than that. And I'm, of course, joined by Ryan Drury, best friend of the program, returning guest I don't know how many times now. And I got a lot, not going to lie, I'm pretty happy with the day the Buffalo Sabres had today, but I'm pretty envious of the day the Washington Capitals had, Ryan.
Yeah, I can understand why. I certainly think that my beloved Capitals were, arguably the most busy team just in terms of overall activity and overall roster overhauling. I'm really ecstatic and optimistic for the next couple seasons now, where the Caps are the oldest team in the league. Doesn't mean that they're bad, and it doesn't mean that they're out of contention or anything like that, but they are getting, toward the end of a competitive window here. And I think that they've added some serious stability in terms of going for it for another 2, maybe 3 seasons, depending on the health of some of these guys as they continue to age. But I'm very happy with, I'll say this in summation. The Capitals, unlike some other teams in the NHL, are inarguably better today as we sit here talking than they were at the end of a playoff run where they should have beat the Florida Panthers and would have beat the Florida Panthers if the goalie they signed today was in net for them then. So, yeah, as a Caps fan, I'm pretty ecstatic.
Yeah, I mean, you addressed, and we talked about before we hopped on here, it was all your moves were calculated, right? Like, they weren't just signing just to, look better on paper. They were signed for reasons. Obviously, I mean, we don't need to say why you went and got Darcy Kemper and Lindgren. Like, there was a glaring need there for you, and that you addressed. Like you said, the time frame for Washington to win a cup might be dwindling a little bit here. Ovechkin's still probably going to score 50 next year. Let's be real. Guys, the pure definition of the Russian machine. Like, the guy just does not stop. But, these guys aren't getting younger. Ovechkin isn't getting any younger. Backstrom isn't getting any younger. Just that team has just been, a playoff contender, Stanley contender for how long now? But, there was a glaring need in that. You went and addressed it. You addressed the penalty kill. Connor Brown, as I said, I love that signing for you guys. And, I think you really put yourselves in a good position going into next year in an Eastern Conference that's still very, very good.
I agree. And I mean, getting Kemper, who, people are pretty divided on, and, a lot of people, including, some of the older guys in my hockey pool, are trying to tell me it's a terrible signing and that he's not elite. I don't need elite. I don't need him to be elite.
You need to be elite for Colorado.
No, he didn't. He had a 902 save percentage. Yeah, he had a 902 save percentage in the playoffs. Keep in mind that was en route to taking a stick in the eyeball, which he has said today in his media availability he's fully recovered from. And he admitted that it hindered his ability a little bit to play at 100% of what he feels is a very high-end ability. And his numbers would show that. Like, yeah, I wouldn't say that he's elite and in pure skill in playing the position. Yeah, there are quite a few guys that I'd probably put ahead of him. But again, with how, when you look at the numbers, how decent the Capitals actually are defensively in terms of being top 5 and top 10 in 5-on-5 and power play expected goals against suppression. They're a pretty good defensive team for as much as people slag on them for not being one. They actually are. And if they had Kemper in net last year, I bet you they win 7 or 8 more games than they did in the regular season. And they still had a really good year. They got over 100 points. I think that it's a good deal. 5 years at $5.25 for a goaltender who I think is inarguably rock solid. I don't need elite, but I mean, it's funny that people are trying to paint this as a guy that it's so far-fetched that he could be elite. Top 5, he's actually 4th in save percentage over the last 5 years of NHL hockey. Have other goalies played way more games than him? In some instances, yes, but he's still 4th in save percentage. 2 of those years on the Arizona Coyotes. Let me say that again. The Arizona Coyotes. As a matter of fact, he had a couple of really great seasons there where he put up, let me just call it up here, a .925 and a .928 save percentage in 55 and 29 games respectively. .907 the following year after that, and then in Colorado this year, a .921, and that was after he had a slow start to go with a 2.54 goals against and 5 shutouts for a Colorado team that obviously did what they did. So, and also last year, he was 4th in goals saved above expected average. The only guys ahead of him were Shesterkin, Markstrom, and Sorokin. Pretty good company. So despite playing for a really good Colorado team, he actually ended up stopping more what people and analytics would consider high danger scoring chances above the expected average. That's what that means. Then basically everybody but 3 starters last year. And Sorokin, you could argue for a majority of the year, wasn't the Islanders' starter. So, I mean, even having said that, no, I'm not going to say he's elite, but he's pretty good. And to solidify the goaltending for this team, and then to bring Lindgren in on 1.1 mil per over 3 years in a very good showing. Yeah, a short showing, albeit with the Blues, a very good showing to shore up the backup role. They still have Zach Fucale in the minors, who has played brilliantly at the AHL level, had small doses at the NHL level, but I love the goaltending depth. You mentioned Connor Brown giving up a 2nd-round pick for a guy that can score 20 goals, play on the 3rd line really effectively, be a good penalty killer, fast. And the Capitals, that's one thing they could get faster. They've done that here with Connor Brown, and he's actually a guy I think could play on the top line with Tom Wilson out for a lengthy period after that knee surgery. I think he could potentially be a guy that slides in on that top line with Ovi and Kuznetsov. Still a lot of questions about what Nick Backstrom's future might look like and whether he ever plays again. So we'll see what happens there. But then, you know, you give a show me contract to a guy with a ton of skill that just didn't work out in Florida, and Henrik Borgstrom, who won an NCAA title in Denver and has a very high ceiling in terms of skill, on a nothing contract. You bring in Eric Gustafson, who can move and will play on the 3rd D pair and could potentially elevate, on a nothing contract for $800,000. You bring back Marcus Johansson, who I was scared they were going to give term to. They didn't. It's 1 year at 1.1. Good guy who can still skate fast and kill penalties. And, you know, and then getting Brown. I mean, I can't say that I don't like a single move that Brian McClellan made today. And I think the Caps, as it stands right now, are one of the big winners of free agency day.
I 100% agree. Like, top 3 if you're trying to rank teams, for sure. I mean, in terms of teams that just went out and got better.
I think so.
Without a doubt. With a loser, though, I don't think we really have to guess who the big loser of the day 1 of NHL free agency is. The team that was expected going into last year to be a team that was going to contend for the Cup, you know, what was going to with the signing of Jack Eichel, or the acquisition of Jack Eichel from us, the Buffalo Sabres, to be a team that was going to, you know, push for the Cup. Literally, they've traded Marc-Andre Fleury and Max Pacioretty, separate deals, and all they've gotten in return is future considerations in both deals. I love this, especially with how salty some of these Vegas fans are right now, because they were on their high horse for the last couple of years, made the Cup finals in their inaugural season, which is insane, don't get me wrong. But now all that shit talk is starting to bite them in the ass because they're giving away. And I don't care, 33 years or not, Pacioretty is still an elite shooter and can score 30 without even trying.
Yeah, if he's healthy, that's the biggest question with him. It is interesting. I mean, when you look back at it, Vegas traded 3 picks, a first, second, third to get Tatar. Then they packaged Tatar and Nick Suzuki for Pacioretty. There was also a pick and another prospect in there, Nordgren, I believe it was, to get Patches. Now they've traded Patches for nothing. I'm just not super sure what George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon are doing over there. This is not the type of thing we were used to seeing from George when he was running the Capitals for almost 20 years. It just seems like a lot of this is owner driven. They wanted to make big splashes. They did. Give them credit for having success right away. To be fair, I still think they're a very good team, and I think that they will make the playoffs next year. But, when you look on return for investment, and keep in mind, they traded Fleury after he won the Vezina.
Made no sense.
And the consensus
outside of cap relief, no sense.
And the consensus there was the reason they did that, it was reported, was that Peter DeBoer favored Leonard, and Peter DeBoer isn't the head coach anymore.
Fantastic.
And now you look at Fleury going back to Minnesota for 3.5 per on a very palatable deal, doing his buddy Bill Guerin a favor. I mean, again, I still think Vegas is a good team, and if Jack can be healthy and get his career back on track and turn into a 40-goal scorer, which I think we all believe he has the talent to, they'll probably be fine. But just at looking at the return on investment of these massive trades that they made, not good. Not good. I would argue, though, that the biggest loser of free agent frenzy is inarguably the Calgary Flames. They just lost their cornerstone player, and he's going to Columbus, and I'm so pissed off because I recorded my show like an hour ago, and he hadn't signed, and then he signs like 20 minutes later in Duane, what I would call, certainly in my lifetime, the most shocking free agent signing in NHL history.
I mean, a couple hours ago, it was speculated that Columbus was a third team in on it all. But, I mean, nobody really took it seriously. And then out of nowhere, Elliot Friedman drops a bomb on the hockey world that it is indeed Columbus that is bringing Johnny Hockey, which to Ohio, which is like nobody saw that coming. And, a couple clicks for like they went out, got the golden goose of free agency. And I for me, it's just like, what does that mean for Matthew Tkachuk? Because there was a lot of speculation from Pierre LeBrun that Tkachuk coming back and signing an extension there would be contingent on what happened with Johnny Gaudreau.
I think that, and for very good and obvious reasons, there are a lot of nervous Calgary Flame fans sitting on their hands right now, wondering, where does this end? Because, the beginning of all of this is not looking great. And this is a team that, I picked them to go to the Cup final this year. I actually picked them to win the Cup. And now it feels like those hopes are dashed. Like, could they go get Nazem Kadri? Yeah, they could. He's not Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, we're talking about a guy that just came off a 115-point career year, 85 of those being at even strength, which is hilarious. It's just insane.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's shocking. I'll say this, like, Gaudreau, he absolutely makes Columbus better. He's an instant offensive threat, a power play threat. He's going to be on the ice a ton. You can argue about their center depth there. They've got some good young prospects coming up in guys like Foodie and Cole Sillinger. And those young guys are going to have two pretty good wingers to play with. I mean, Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, like, that's nothing to sniff at. Those are two pretty good players that are dangerous for different reasons. Laine with a big cannon and Gaudreau with his slick playmaking ability. It's like Columbus is going to have a power play. Didn't love the Eric Goodbranson deal. I actually thought that might have been one of the worst, if not the worst contract of the day. I'm not sure what Jarmo was thinking there.
$4 million.
Toughness and leadership is not worth $4 million for a box pylon that cannot skate. I'm not really sure what he's doing there. I mean, hey, smoke him if you got him. You've got all this cap space, whatever. I'm not sure what Eric Goodbranson did to earn 4 years, but it's significant. Yeah, it's I don't know why that wasn't appropriate, but whatever. They wanted him for some reason, and there he is. I'll say this for Columbus, like the city, and we're seeing it a lot on Twitter, and I can confirm it. Like, it is an underrated city. It's actually a lot of fun. Of course, you know, my cousin was there for a few seasons coaching alongside John Tortorella, who he rejoined in Philly. Cousin Brad's off to Philly now, which is interesting. But, you know, he was Tort's right-hand man when they were in Columbus together. And, you know, when we went down and visited, you know, Brad down there, we had a ton of fun. It's a beautiful city in a beautiful state with a lot of fun teams around to go and see. Obviously, the Bengals aren't very far away. And the city is great. Like, they've done a good job of building up that downtown, quote unquote, arena district. It's a lot of fun. It's a college town. And when we went down there and watched games, it was a lot of fun to be around the rink. There's a lot of great bars, really good restaurants. Like, it is an underrated gem in terms of a place to live. The roster, I don't know, as currently constructed, if it's necessarily an underrated gem. It kind of is what it is. But Johnny Gaudreau seems to obviously have faith that they're going in the right kind of direction, because there were other places he could have signed that would have afforded him better teammates to play with now. The New York Islanders come to mind immediately. Of course, everybody figured he'd go home to New Jersey. The Rangers, potentially, they're always in on everybody, you know, but everybody just assumed, you know, I'm leaving Calgary for family reasons. Well, he must be going home to, you know, New Jersey to play with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. Or maybe he's going to the island to play in that new arena down there, which is allegedly really awesome, and play with Matt Barzal or something. And no, it's not worked out. I loved Columbus. I think it's a great city, but it just, in terms of free agency, I'm struggling to think of a more shocking, out of nowhere free agent splash that's this significant. It's incredible what Columbus has pulled off here.
With PLD as his center, if PLD is still there.
PLD's gone. He's in Winnipeg, and they're trying to trade him.
I'm sorry, Laine. I'm sorry, I got the two mixed up. Patrick Laine. And I just maybe, and I remember talking about with Kyle Quick about, you know, what exactly, why exactly Johnny Gaudreau would leave Calgary, and he thought about Buffalo as being a possible destination only because he can fly under the radar there. The spotlight isn't really on him, and he can just do his own thing, get paid, you know, whatever. And I think about that when I think of Columbus too, because Columbus, there isn't a big spotlight on him. He maybe isn't expected just to be the guy, even though he's getting paid to be the guy. But I mean, still, even though Columbus, I mean, like, as do here. Andrew Katz, friend of the program. Lou Lamoriello seems fitting for his initials because he took a big fat fucking L. Time to kick the can, man. Need answers from ownership, in my opinion, as to why they think Lou is their man. The game has passed him by. And then he goes, "You're going to lose out to Columbus over $500,000 when you have to have a $2 billion arena an hour's drive away from home, not 10 hours." mean, like going back to what you said, I mean, I agree. Like, it doesn't make much sense to me. I would love to hear the reasoning from John Gaudreau himself why he chose Columbus and not going home to the island.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear his thoughts on this. Like my thinking is he must feel that Jarmo sold him on the young prospects they have, the young goaltending that they have there in Merzlikins, who is going to be looking for a big time bounce back year. Korpisalo, we'll see if he comes back after a very dismal year himself. They do have promising prospects, I'll say that for sure. I like Cole Sillinger. I think he's going to be a good NHL player. Is he a number one? I don't know. Like, it's interesting. It's a huge win for Columbus. Like, it makes sense for Columbus. Like, of course, they got inarguably way better offensively and on the wing. And like Johnny Gaudreau is single-handedly going to add what? 5 percentage points to their power play efficiency by himself.
Yeah, easily.
You know, him on the half wall throwing one-timer sauce to Laine, like that sounds pretty good, you know. And they've got some young players. Yeah, like they've got some young players there that are going to try and, you know, edge their way into full-time NHL jobs. But it does beg the question, you know. He left upwards of $15 million on the table in the Calgary deal. And I know that, you know, there's the whole thing with the taxation, Canadian teams and this. Here's the thing that people don't talk about often enough, though, with the Canadian teams and, yes, the taxes. When you play for a Canadian team, you are not going to be watched more. You can't be watched and seen and appreciated as a player more than any other place in the NHL. You just can't. Aside from what, Boston and the Rangers, Buffalo would be up there too when Buffalo's rocking. They love their Sabres and rightfully so. But here's the thing in Canada, like the sponsorship dollars that are available to you here, and so, like, yeah, it's great to play in Tampa and have no state tax, but by and large, the state of Florida has no idea who Steven Stamkos is.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of a give and take there where like the sponsorship opportunities in Canada are massive. Like Mitch Marner, you see him on like all the Intact insurance ads that he was doing. He was making bank on that. Like he was getting a ton of money for that. And yeah, he pays more taxes to live here in Canada, but it does even out a little bit. I do wonder too, and I don't think Johnny would ever admit it. I wonder how much of a factor that dump of an arena in Calgary factored into him potentially leaving, because, man, they are number one outside of the Arizona State Coyotes. They are the number one team in Gary Bettman's crosshairs in terms of getting a new rink. They need a new rink really, really bad. And now that the Islanders have theirs, and it sounds like the Senators are maybe making waves to potentially getting a new building there, man, they need a new rink. I genuinely wonder how much that potentially factored into his decision. I don't know.
I still hate that. I mean, as great of a team they have and as good of the season, they had such a good squad this year. And even during the season, man, that arena was half full most nights, and it drives me nuts down in Florida. It really does. Arizona State Coyotes, it's a joke.
That's what they are.
That's what they are.
They are.
For me, it's it really is a brain buster, man. But I think you're right, Ryan. I really do. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. But other losers from free agency, I think Philly. Philly just did virtually nothing today.
Yeah, and they were rumored to be players maybe for Gaudreau. I just don't know what they see in holding on to, and I mean, let alone holding on to acquiring a guy like Ristolainen. Good luck. And now they bring D'Angelo into the mix and give him plenty of term and money. I think D'Angelo, just taking myself outside of the person that he is and has consistently shown himself to be, outside of that, I think on the ice, he's a talented hockey player. I don't want anything to do with them, but like, of course, Philly does. And I just really think that Philly, I mean, I think Philly, I actually think Philly is definitely in danger of finishing last overall in the NHL next year. I really do. I don't like anything about that team. I don't love their roster at all. Their stalwart and Claude Giroux is gone. Still some nice pieces there, and Travis Konechny and the like, but I hate their roster. And like Carter Hart, what is he? Is he a victim of the Philly?
Man.
I know, right? Like put together one of the finest CHL goaltending seasons in a very long time in Everett, and was highly touted and deservedly so. Is he simply the latest victim of the Philly goaltending flu, or is he just not what everyone thought he was, much like Ilya Samsonov with Washington? Is he just not what everybody hyped him up to be? I don't know. Of course, Philly will finish last. They have Risto. I seriously, like, Arizona's really bad and Chicago will be really bad. Philly is right there for me. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all, honestly, if Philly finished dead last in the NHL next year. I just don't love anything about that team at all. I think they had a brutal day. Yeah, I agree. I think they were terrible, and there were some other teams too that, you know, kind of leave you shaking your head.
Look at that. 17 bars to watch Charm.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. I agree. Like, a Nationwide Arena is an awesome, it's a great arena. It is really nice. And like the cannons and everything, like, yeah, it's a fun arena. And like when people have really started to get a lot more attached, you know, with the Jackets, like it is a fun building. Like, I agree. Claude Giroux,
Rakeem Davis, what's going on, Duane and Ryan? Quick question: what is your thoughts on Claude Giroux signing with the Ottawa Senators? What is my opinion of that? I mean, is Ottawa ready to make that push?
Yeah, that's a question that they're going to have to answer. I think that they are way, way better today than they were at the end of the season. Yep. Getting DeBrincat, who I think that's one of the most confusing moves, like Chicago bottoming out. I understand they want to bottom out and get Bedard and one more year here of Kane and Taves. Kane will not be on that franchise. I think he'll be gone before Christmas, and they'll retain half his salary. I still can't wrap my head around what possessed them to get rid of DeBrincat, but what a stroke of genius by Pierre Dorion, who has taken a lot of heat, and rightfully so, for some of the moves that he's whiffed on, but trading that 7th overall pick for a prospect that you were going to pick there that's in no way, shape, or form in a bit of a middling draft. In no way, shape, or form was that prospect selected there going to be better than what DeBrincat is going to give you right now and for a very, very long time. So adding him and then Giroux into the mix and getting Cam Talbot in as a pretty solid option in goal and escaping the nightmare that was Matt Murray, I think that Pierre Dorion is having a pretty nifty little chuckle to himself right now. Claude Giroux, it's quite clear he still has plenty of quality in his game. He is slowing down as anybody would with age, but he had a really good season last year, all things considered, playing on a pretty bad Philly team and then flipping over to Florida. No, he ultimately wasn't, you know, a godsend piece in helping them get over the hump, as they just could not deal with Tampa again. I still think he's a really good player. One thing you can say about him is, yeah, as players slow down, one thing that doesn't leave you is your smarts and your hockey IQ. And this guy has shown over his career, he's been one of the smartest players in the NHL. He has put together a lot of very, very good seasons in a pressure market as a captain of that Philadelphia Flyers team. He still brings a lot of good, I would venture to say, elite aspects of the game to the rink, and at a little over $6 million to come in and be a veteran guy and help rise the tide of some of the games of that young Ottawa team. I think he's going to do wonders for guys like Josh Norris and Brady Tkachuk. He's still going to be an effective weapon on the power play, moving the puck around. He's a great passer, great vision. That's not ever going to leave him, even as he slows down. I think, it's a pretty good signing. I don't ultimately think Ottawa will make the playoffs, but I'll say that I won't be like on the floor shocked if they do. And I will actually probably be sprinkling a little bit of money for them to get into the playoffs as a wild card team.
I was actually just going to ask you, man, like how much of a sleeper bet is that right now?
I think it's a really good one, and I haven't seen odds yet. Those will probably come out in the next month or so. I would probably bet that it's going to be something like plus 1,200, maybe even plus 1,500 for our betting enthusiasts out there. Just off the top of my head, I bet you that might be what the line is for Ottawa to make the playoffs. And I'd sprinkle 10, 15 bucks on that. I would, and I will.
Get a huge return.
Yeah, 100%.
Fuck, do $100. Why not?
Well, I like to be conservative with my money. I make like $5, $10 bets. So
yeah. But I mean, who benefits the most out of that signing for me is Brady Tkachuk, right? A kid who,
of course,
is a rough, tough, elites. Like the Tkachuk family, both those kids are just unicorns, right? They're just, these kids give you everything you want in your prototype.
They're animals.
Player. You know what I mean? They're elite. They're elite playmakers. They're elite goal scorers. Unbelievable skating ability, shooting ability is off the charts, and not to mention, they will literally run you through a wall. They will run you out of the arena if you touch their goalie. Like, you don't find players like that. That's why when Pierre LeBrun was, speculating that if Johnny Hockey leaves, like Matthew Tkachuk might want out, and they might want to think about possibly the actual reality. We might have to trade this guy because I don't think he's going to want to come back if the sky is falling. That's why I think maybe Calgary makes a hard push for Nazem Kadri, because you got to keep that kid happy. He's your captain. Like, what do you got to get? I mean, money talks, bullshit walks. But find me any teams outside of whoever's in cap hell who isn't going to back up a Brinks truck for Matthew Tkachuk. And I was even saying before the draft, if that is a reality, and if there really is like smoke there, even though they say there isn't, I would say Buffalo should offer all 3 firsts and Jack Quinn, if that's enough for Matthew Tkachuk, because he is worth it. Because you hope that Jack Quinn could be 75% of what Matthew Tkachuk is right now at 23, 24 years old. And the reality of it is, are those 3 picks that you just made going to be as good as Matthew Tkachuk? They could be. One of them could, for sure. But, I mean, the likelihood? No. You drafted small centers, all 3 of them. They weren't big. Very skilled centers. I think Matthew Savoy reminds me a lot of Danny Briere. I tweeted that out. Like, watching him play, it just makes me think of Danny a lot.
Yeah.
But do they have the potential and the ceiling of a Matthew Tkachuk who had over 100 points this season and plays the style of hockey that he plays? No, not at all. So that's why for me, all 3 of those first and Jack Quinn, as great of a year as he had in the AHL, was worth it, 100%. Because that guy takes you from, maybe a team that finishes in 20th next year to a team that really is pushing for a wild card spot in the playoffs.
Buffalo would be a team that would have a lot of appropriate assets if the Calgary Flames are forced to consider moving Matthew Tkachuk. Mm-hmm. Obviously, immediately there's speculation that he's going to want to go home to St. Louis. And the Blues, I mean, they would move heaven and earth, to try and get him to. I don't know what that looks like. They did just sign Robert Thomas to a massive 8-year, $8.1 million deal.
Do you think they overpaid him? I think so.
I do, simply because, and I like Rob Thomas. I watched him a lot in the OHL. He's a really good player, OHL champ. He is a really good player, and he had a great year. He was second on the team in scoring. I believe he had 77 points off the top of my head here.
8.1,
like I mean,
years.
if he, based on what he's done so far in the league, and he's had some injury woes too early in his career, based on what he's done so far, even including this year, yeah, 8.1 feels rich to me. But if he continues to be a 70-plus point player and play that dogged style, then it's absolutely worth it. And he's really young. I think he's 23 years old, 22 or 23. If he plays like this for the duration of that deal, and he'll still be young-ish when that deal expires, then it's not an overpayment. And it's the devil, right? They know all about this kid. They know what he brings to the rink. They know how hard he works. He fits in well there. Mm-hmm. If Tkachuk wants out, St. Louis, of course, is going to be heavily involved, but Buffalo would be a team that's on the rise, still has some holes to fill, sure, but they would be a team that have plenty of assets to try and entice the Calgary Flames. I definitely don't disagree. And with Savoy, I saw your tweet about him reminding you of Briere. I think that's an apt comparison. A small guy who's just, he's slick out there, man. He's a slick little player. He's slippery, and he's not afraid of the physicality either. I think that if he ends up being a permanent part of the Sabres' ongoing rebuild, I think he's going to make people there really happy because he's a hardworking kid and he's got plenty of skill.
And he was slotted in at Buffalo's pick at 9 on a lot of mock drafts too, a lot of boards. So it wasn't surprising that they went with him. One of the picks I was ranting and raving about this too. That second round pick, I don't agree with taking a goalie there for that early in the second round. Especially, granted, yes, he was the top ranked goalie in the entire draft, but for me, it's like you have Eric Portillo and Devin Levi. Granted, Portillo hasn't signed yet. Neither is Levi. Even though I have it on good account that Levi is coming to Buffalo after this, I'm not going to say it for sure, but after this college season, because anything can happen. But he's pretty much all but told me that that's his plan. And Portillo, if he wasn't going to sign, would he be there? Would Buffalo have him there?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that it's a good move given that we've just seen how explosive the goalie carousel was leading into today. So I actually think loading up, it's like baseball. You can just never have too many pitchers.
That's true.
I don't think you can ever have too many defensemen and too many goalies, and having all these lottery tickets, because that's what they are. We can look at goalies. We just talked about Carter Hart and Ilya Samsonov, two guys who were first rounders where everyone was going, here's two of the next big things. So far hasn't worked out great. And one of those organizations in my Capitals walked away from a 22nd overall pick in Ilya Samsonov. So until a goaltender gets to the NHL and carves out a consistent foothold in a crease for a team, they're all lottery tickets. So I actually think for a team like Buffalo, based on where they are, and some of the positives that they managed to carve out in the latter half of that season and the excitement that they generated under Donnie Meatballs, I actually think it's a pretty good gamble because that's what they are. Every draft pick, really, when you break it down, is a gamble outside of your Sidney Crosbys and McDavids and Ovechkins and Matthews. Every draft pick's a gamble. Talk to Nail Yakupov. How's he doing back in Siberia? So I actually think in terms of how important we've seen how that goaltending is to teams, I actually don't mind that pick by Buffalo. So I don't know. Time will tell. But they're crossing their fingers, Kevin Adams and his management team, that one of these guys, who they now have, 4 or 5 of them now, because Luukkonen is still there. And he could, who knows, he could turn around. One of these guys has got to be the guy, right? We'll see.
Well, I think that's a big kick in the dick to UPL signing Comrie today. And you have Anderson.
Yeah.
So it's like, buddy, you had your chance to put up or shut up. You couldn't stay healthy. And when you were down in the AHL, granted, Rochester was a shit show on their own end. You just couldn't put up consistency and get that and get them to a Calder Cup. I'm not saying I've given up on UPL, but just, man,
I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't.
But it is like, hey, what have you got?
Yeah, and he like the kid before he even went pro already had double hip surgery. He's had multiple lower body injuries. I think
Yeah.
one upper body injury. Like, the kid is glass, man. And I mean, even if he comes in next season healthy and plays an entire season, I mean, these injuries are going to catch up with all goaltenders at some point in their career. And for him, it looks like it's going to be sooner rather than later. I just can't see it. If I'm a betting man, whatever I would be betting on Portillo or Levi to be that guy or that tandem going into the future, because I just don't. I'm not going to say I've lost all faith in UPL. I won't say that, but the injuries are a huge, huge, huge concern with him. And I shouldn't say I hated them taking the goalie, but I was a big Lane Hudson guy. I know he is 5'8". Apparently some endocrinologist report came out where he actually has delayed bone development. So like he's actually still has a full year of growth left in him. But with that being said, I mean, he's like second all time in NTDP scoring for a defenseman behind like maybe Quinn Hughes or something like that. So for me, it's like that was a no-brainer for me. Just bring that kid in. What's it gonna hurt? The kid's an absolute dynamo. And I mean, I think in a league where size, I know defensively it's different, but in a league where size doesn't matter as much as it used to be, like that kid is so dynamic, so smart. And even though he's not a big guy, he knows how to use the ice that he does have to find space and avoid physical play.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, everything you said about UPL, again, I think is even further reason to kind of support where they took that goalie. I mean, I'm interested to see like Comrie's a guy that had plenty of backers when he came into the NHL too. I actually think it was really smart of the Sabres not to get involved in this wild goalie carousel and bring back a veteran guy in Anderson who has seen it all, done it all, had lots of success over his career, including some really great years in Ottawa. And then to bring Comrie in as a guy who is healthy and can give you minutes on a young team that's still building toward what they hope will be a positive decade-long run with some of the young players that they've been able to bring into the organization. But, you brought it up with the Tkachuk thing and just in general with the space they have and the positivity that they've managed to cultivate, particularly in the latter half of last year. Like Buffalo should be, and I think will be, a major player on the trade market over the next season or two. And they've done a good job in earning that status. They've got a good young core of players here. And I think that as they continue to improve, you're going to be in a position where you can add to that.
I'm sorry to be laughing. I'm listening to talk about in that group chat with our friend Katz. He is still losing his mind about Lou Lamoriello, and I am here for every second of it. Like, it was like me 2 years ago with the ownership of Buffalo, and he's just losing his mind. He needs to call a radio station right now.
He should hang up and listen. Yeah.
Listen, absolutely. Oh, it's so funny. But
he's an interesting guy, right? And I can't say that I disagree with him in saying like the game is kind of passed Lou by. I don't know, man. I would like to think that Islanders team, there's plenty of excuses from last year. The long road trip before the building was ready. Some guys having some really down years, plenty of injuries. Sure. I still like their future. I like Dobson a lot. I like Matt Barzal a lot. I like their head coach a lot. I still don't know why they fired Barry Trotz, but I like Lane Lambert a lot. Guy that won a Stanley Cup. He knows what's going on. And I like Ilya Sorokin a lot. And they've got Varlamov there, who I think Sorokin will overtake permanently this year. And that's an asset for a guy, they could flip Varlamov to a team that really needs a goaltender in the regular season and probably get a pretty good asset back. But Lou, it's just, he was the perfect GM for the Devils for all that time he ran them. And he had inarguable success, a mountain of success. They were such a good team for that era. He put together a team that absolutely stifled you and put many fans to sleep, but they won a lot. And now, as the game has kind of changed into a more fast-paced, wide-open, back-and-forth, shoot-'em-up style of hockey, where skill is able to be on display quite a bit more, I don't know. Yeah, I hesitate to criticize his overall impact on the game. He's a Hall of Famer and should be, and his career, which is better than most. But for right now, I'll just say that I'm happy that he's not running my favorite team.
Yeah.
That's about as respectful as I can be.
While we've been on live, Carolina Hurricanes have signed Andre Kasha. So there's that.
Interesting.
Better and better and better.
They're an interesting team, and they get Brent Burns too. They clearly feel like they're still a contender, and I think they are. I mean, they're a really good team, and they got some really good players there. I really like Teravainen. I love Sebastian Aho. I think he's fantastic. Future considerations, baby. That's like GM's favorite words. So good.
Whoever runs the Carolina Hurricanes Twitter is a genius, because that's awesome.
They're pretty funny.
That's an absolute nut slap to everybody in Vegas. Future consideration.
It's really good. It's really good.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic, man. Oh, how can you not love
your impact on the Canes will never be forgotten. That's pretty funny. That's a quality tweet. Yeah. They're a team that got better too. Tony DeAngelo leaves. They get a veteran guy who's still got plenty of game, and we all know what Brent Burns is all about. He's perennial
still good for 40 to 50 points a year, man.
He's a fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised on that Carolina team if he got 60 and had like a nice resurgent season.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he's not expected to be the guy.
No, he doesn't have to be. Jacob Slavin's the guy.
Yeah, you don't need him to be the guy.
Jacob Slavin's one of the most underrated players in the league.
Agreed.
And yeah, I just love what they're all about there. Svechnikov is a freak. They've got a really good team there. And they made some noise today. And I mean, Andre Kasha is a guy that before he got hurt was, doing some good things in Toronto. And I think he's going to fit in perfectly there with that grinder mentality that Rod the Bod Brindamore has in Carolina. I think Kasha will fit in perfectly fine on their third line.
Yeah, I agree. And then Andre Palat, another name that hasn't signed yet. I'm surprised how quiet the market has been around Palat. You haven't heard much in regards to him, right? Like, he's not going back to Tampa.
They can't afford him after dishing out a ton of money to Sergachev and Cirelli, and rightfully so.
They made the right moves, though. They made the right moves. They locked up their core. They had a great day. I'm sorry, they had a great day today.
People are like, I can't believe that they paid Mikhail Sergachev. Mikhail Sergachev's a really, really good player. And when you consider the impact that he had in taking some pressure and some minutes off of Hedman on those long, long runs, 3 of them, and the fact that he continues to get better and will continue to put more points up as he gets more minutes and probably starts to take even more of a load off Hedman, who's played in a lot of hockey. They all have over the last few years. If Seth Jones is making 9.5 and Charlie McAvoy, who I love, is making 9.5, I believe, as well, and Darnell Nurse is making 9.25. Mikhail Sergachev at 8.5 sounds perfectly fine to me. Yep. And God, I mean, can you argue against what he's done and the impact he's had on 2 Stanley Cup winners, 3 straight finalists? Mm-hmm. And as far as Anthony Cirelli goes too, they locked up at a really nice capit as well. He's become a prototypical 2-way force. I actually think that Cirelli is very much like what David Krejci, who is rumored to be coming back to Boston, was for years for the Bruins, and at a very similar capit. That's about, I actually think Krejci was making like 7.25 in his heyday with the Bruins back when they won that cup and were contending for years and years. I actually think Cirelli is very similar to David Krejci, and I have zero problem with either of the contracts they handed out to two guys who are champions and proved they're champions time and again.
Yep, and they're still going to be right in the hunt of it, right in the thick of it next year. It's not.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Where, man, they still had Vasilevsky in that. I mean,
he's pretty good.
Yeah, best goalie in the world, still in my opinion, even with Shesterkin in the league. I still think. I mean, Shesterkin still has a lot to prove in my eyes. I mean, obviously Vezina Trophy winning goalie this year. For a cup of coffee, he was, maybe the front runner for the Hart with that run he went on. But for me, it's still Vasilevsky. I'm still taking the 3-time cup winner. They have 2 cups. Sorry.
Yeah. Two.
They went to the finals the year before. I'm sorry.
Four Stanley Cup final appearances though for Vasilevsky now.
Yes.
One of which he wasn't really the starter for, but again, if it's game 7 tonight, I want Vasilevsky in net.
100%.
I want him in net over every other goaltender available to me. Maybe even every other player available to me. I would probably take Vasilevsky first.
Yeah, 100%. I just, Shesterkin's going to be the next Vasilevsky. That's for sure.
Russia, man, they're cranking goalies out. Like they're a goalie factory, man.
The Russian team.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, they're cranking out good goalies.
So we went over the big winners, Capitals being one of them. Columbus obviously is up there now with that huge signing of Gaudreau. They put themselves right in the thick of it. I think the Ottawa Senators, again, a top 3 team. Getting DeBrincat, getting
Giroux, Talbot.
What is Minnesota doing, by the way? For me, I thought Cam Talbot should have been the guy. He did nothing to lose that net. I know Fleury is, still a phenomenal goaltender, but I mean, if you're asking me who I want to, go forward with, it would have been Cam Talbot for me. The guy did nothing to deserve to lose that net, in my opinion. Granted, you are still riding with a phenomenal goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury, and still, like you said earlier, I still can't believe they traded him the year.
Vegas is handing out poker chips to everybody. I'll say this. Obviously, Fleury, they feel like with his pedigree, he could be a guy to help them contend right now. And they feel that his overall skill level is a little bit more reliable than Talbot, who, you're right, really didn't do much to lose that crease. And after Marc-Andre Fleury was acquired, it is worth mentioning that Cam Talbot didn't lose another game in the regular season after that trade, and did get into some of the playoff action for Minnesota. I'll say this, though. In trading him to Ottawa did give up what I still feel is a blue-chip prospect in net in Philip Gustafsson. I think Philip Gustafsson has a potentially really bright future in the NHL. And I think that Minnesota, after realizing that Talbot was sour about the whole Fleury thing, and then probably when they realized that Fleury was going to be willing to sign for 3.5 to see out the end of his career, they did a pretty astute job, actually, in getting a young asset back in Gustafsson, who I still think, especially now with a mentor like Fleury, I think that Gustafsson could potentially be their goalie of the future. That was what the hope in Ottawa was. I like him a lot, and he's had some good AHL numbers, and I think that he's young enough still where Minnesota's probably banking on him picking up a lot of wisdom from Marc-Andre Fleury, who's going to walk into the Hall of Fame someday. So, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, there's been a lot of shuffling around. Ottawa's done well. I mean, we haven't even talked about the dice roll that Toronto is taking with their goaltending.
That's what I was trying to bridge to there, transition into.
Well, give her. Let's hear.
So the Leafs think they went from having Campbell and Freddie Anderson to Campbell Mrazek to Matt Murray and who was
Ilya Samsonov.
Ilya Samsonov. You know very well.
Yeah, I do.
granted. I mean, maybe the kid can turn it around. He had a little of a bright shining spot there in the playoffs for him, right? Had one game. I think he had one decent game, didn't he?
He had a really good game in relief, of Vanacek. And good luck to both those guys.
Yeah.
But Ilya Samsonov, I'll start with him, given that I know him very well, is the epitome of a what if.
Mm-hmm.
It's so disappointing to me that this is the reality of it. And Brian McClellan said as much today. Like, when you look at the Capitals over the last number of years, they have produced a lot of goalies, some much better than others, but look at their draft history in getting Varlamov into the league. For a period of time there, Neuwirth had some promise. Holtby, a 4th-round pick who won a Stanley Cup, and sadly, it sounds like he's going to have to retire. And when he does, if anybody deserves one of those goofy one-day contracts and an immediate number raise to the rafters with a picture of him making the save on your buddy Alex Tuck in that Cup final, it's Braden Holtby. But they bring Holtby into the league. Samsonov, Vanacek, Phoenix Copley, like they have done really well. And Samsonov was supposed to turn into the guy. It's the guy that came in with a mountain of high praise and pedigree, and in what many would still probably consider the second hardest professional league, the KHL, in the world, playing against men, had disgusting numbers playing for Metallurg, which is the franchise many will know that Yevgeny Malkin played for before he came to the NHL. Disgusting numbers against the KHL's best. Comes over here, and he is now in a situation where, you look at the inconsistency and inability to just settle in his net, bad angles, poor rebound control. I don't think there's a starting goalie in the NHL that drops and misplaces his stick more than Ilya Samsonov.
Yeah.
Has no depth perception or awareness of where he is in his crease in relation to his posts. Soft goals galore. Brutal mistakes against the Florida Panthers in the playoffs this year, outside of that one decent performance where he relieved Vanacek in a game the Caps won. The Capitals win that series if Darcy Kemper is in net. I said that earlier, and I firmly believe that. This kid has to decide how badly he wants to be an NHLer. And he is going to get his last chance, really, to do it with Toronto on a show-me deal in competition with a guy who cannot stay healthy. So in terms of opportunity, Samsonov is going to go to a pretty good defensive team in terms of shot suppression and quality danger scoring chances against. And he is going to get one last chance before he has to inevitably, just go back home. This guy has to decide right now, I want to play in the NHL for the rest of my career. And so there's one half of this dice roll that Kyle Dubas is playing here. And the other half is just a strange. This is what happens when, you give 4 guys almost half of what your cap is to pay what does not make up half an NHL roster. This is the type of scenario that you get into. And I understand why people are willing to be optimistic, and I get it. We've seen Matt Murray play at very high highs. We've seen him play at very low lows, and there's just no middle here.
Man, it's been a lot of low. I mean,
of late, yes.
I will say he started off pretty well for Ottawa, and he just had a stretch of games where he was just absolutely getting pissed on every night.
I think the biggest thing, here's the optimism side, right? 2 cups, had a lot of supportive teams. Those 2 cup teams were really good Pittsburgh Penguin teams with a great mentor in Marc-Andre Fleury helping you out a little bit on both of those runs, albeit worth saying that he played all of the games in those 2 cup finals. has a real problem with his high glove. He does not have a great glove hand. That's been the knock on him ever since his OHL days. Funnily enough, also with the Sioux Greyhounds. I'm waiting for the press release that they've announced that they're now known as the Toronto Sioux Greyhounds. I think he's now the 13th or 14th former Sioux Greyhound player, let alone staff member from back in the day that Dubas has brought in. It's bizarre. But Murray, and again, his early days in Pittsburgh, some really good numbers here, like some really, really nice looking numbers. 13 games in that first cup year in the regular season, a .930 save percentage, 49 the next year, a .923 percentage. Then a bump in the road, 49 games, a .907. Then he plays 50 games with a .919 save percentage the year that really his last good year. Then he really hits a wall, 38 games in an injury-riddled season in his last with Pittsburgh, an .899 save percentage. Tristan Jarry steals his job. They let him walk as a free agent to Ottawa, where he puts up 27 games and an .893 and 20 last year with a .906. Now, there was a 10-game stretch last year in early January into February where Matt Murray played 10 games and had a .941 save percentage. There's still those flashes. Is he still young? Yes, he's still young by relative terms in a goal. He's 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern, and I do not have a unique take on this. This is not unique. My concern, like basically everyone, is I don't doubt that there's a talent there. Can this guy play more than 25 games? And if we're going to talk betting again, if you were to give me a line of 25 and a half, 26 and a half games played, I'm taking the under on that. I really think that this is Kyle Dubas's last bullet. And I said on my show that I recorded earlier today, I think Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe will both be fired before the end of next season. Like playoffs, like they will be gone, both of them, before the playoffs. I firmly believe that.
I honestly, God, I'm surprised they made it through the offseason.
I know. I was convinced after Game 7. I'm like, this guy is gone. Maybe not Keefe, but Dubas. I was like, this is it. Like 5 straight. Not even 5 straight. I love that people keep going, 5 straight years of first-round exits. They lost to Columbus in a qualifier to get into the playoffs. That's not the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs that year. They didn't. Nope. They got beaten by Jonas Korpisalo. It wasn't the playoffs, guys. It's not the playoffs. So, but like the amount of failure there. Yay, fun regular seasons. I tell you, I know an awful lot about that watching the Capitals for years. Hey, President's Trophy out in the first round, out in the second round. Pittsburgh, Rangers, Pittsburgh. Makes me sick. It is a move of sheer desperation. And when managers in any sport make moves like this is the definition of high risk, high reward. When you hear people toss that term around, this is the type of move they mean. Matt Murray is either going to figure it out and stay healthy behind a very good defensive team. The Leafs are. Just look at their analytics. They are. By analytical standards, they are a very good defensive team, top 5 in the league. He is either going to thrive there and stay healthy and play 50-plus games and be a .915 or better goaltender and help them win a round, or he is going to collapse and his body is going to betray him again. Ilya Samsonov is going to go in the net with Eric Shalgren or Joseph Wall behind him. And Ilya Samsonov is going to do what Ilya Samsonov does and have a shutout one night and then let 6 in the next couple nights.
Yeah.
That is not the worst case scenario. That's the
up in 4 guys, man.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's just
that's not the worst case scenario.
Really...
That's a likely scenario. I'm just telling you what is likely based on what we've seen. Mm-hmm. Okay? So those 2 guys, particularly Matt Murray, have got to show everybody, particularly Leaf fans, that that is not going to be the case and have a completely different set of circumstances that they present with their play than what we're all anticipating, because I can only go off what I've seen, and both these guys do not move the needle for me.
No.
So
it was funny too, because you had Toronto, you have Leafs fans all over Twitter defending the Matt Murray signs. Like, how can you defend that? Like, how, in what world universe are you defending even over a couple $1 million? Or no, it was term. That's what it was for Dubas. It was term. He didn't want to give Campbell the term.
Yeah.
To defend letting Jack Campbell, a guy who got you over 30 wins last season on his own, not on his own, but, and then bringing in a guy who played a chunk of games in the AHL last season, and not because he was hurt. There's just no, justification for it. There's none. There's no justification for it. And I get it. As we stated earlier when it came to Kemper, you don't need elite goaltending to win Stanley Cups. You don't need, you don't need Kemper to be elite in Washington. But you're gonna need Matt Murray to be a better version of Kemper if you want to win in Toronto. Not even just because of just their faulty their difficulties defending, but just the pressure that's going to be on them. You thought pressure was bad, in Pittsburgh or Ottawa. Forget about it with the media in Toronto, buddy. Like, those cameras have twice as many cameras in your face after every game asking you what went right or what went wrong. And if you can't handle that pressure and you're going to fold under it, forget about it. And Jack Campbell, granted, yes, he was an emotional guy, but he was able to handle it. He was. It wasn't his fault they lost in the first round. They played against the fucking Tampa Bay Lightning.
I don't think that Jack Campbell lost them the series. I don't think that he lost them the series against Montreal the year before either. They had a bunch of star players that didn't show up and earn their money. They didn't perform well. Like, I thought that they all, to a man, played better this year for the most part. But that Montreal series, like, Austin Matthews was invisible. John Tavares, unfortunately, had a really scary injury and wasn't available to them, but they still should have beat Montreal in 5 at worst, and they did not. And I still, in that Game 7, Campbell said he let in the worst goal of his life. Well, where are all these big star players to score a goal against Montreal? Like, figure it out for me. And then this year, and that's the thing that people are saying, well, Dubas survived because they lost, and Sheldon Keefe had that goofy handshake line comment and everything. I don't care that you got put out by the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Guess what? On the way to winning a Stanley Cup, you're going to have to play hard teams.
Yeah. Like,
nobody has ever won a Stanley Cup playing 3 super easy opponents at least one time on the way there. Never mind the Cup final. You're going to play a hard team. Washington had to do it. They had to exercise the demon of demons. Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby owned Ovechkin and the Capitals' ass all the time. Never lost a playoff series to them. Guess what they eventually had to do? Like, I don't want to hear this. Oh, well, we had to play the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. So beat the Tampa Bay Lightning then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the excuses are just like over the top. And like, even when the Caps were doing this year after year, I didn't want to hear it. Oh, well, Pittsburgh, I don't care. Beat them. You're paying 4 guys to be world beaters. Figure it out. I don't know, man. I think Kyle Dubas has played his final card here. And he's not even laying down a poker hand with rocket aces. He's laying down like a couple 7s here, hoping to hit a 4 of a kind. Because these 2 goalies, man, as we stand right now, maybe one of them proves us wrong. Maybe they both prove us wrong. Maybe they both provide some solid goaltending and have big time bounce back seasons. I doubt it. I really do. I doubt it. And I think that this is the final thing that's going to cost Dubas his job.
I agree. I don't understand how, as a Leafs fan, you can feel optimistic about the moves they made over like the last 72 hours.
They're a worse team than they were at the end of the season.
100%.
I won't hear an argument against that.
And it's not like they can afford to get better right now.
I think right now, as we are chatting here, believe they have $3.7 million in cap space. They've qualified Pierre Engvall, which makes sense. He actually had a pretty nice little season for them. Mikheyev is gone. Sandin needs re-signed, and rumors are that he's not particularly happy with how he was utilized last year, and he's a key young piece of your defense. I really like him. You got to get him signed. I think all signs are pointing to a similar thing with McDonough, what Tampa had to do with him. I think that the Leafs are going to try and move Jake Muzzin, and God love the guy for all he tried to do. He just cannot stay healthy, and that 5.6 or 5.5 cap hit, it's just too much of a liability at this point. I think he will be moved, and that will probably get you Sandin, Engvall, and some more pieces signed up. But it's a big gamble here for the Leafs. I did just see that Anaheim has signed Ryan Strome, 5 years, $5 million per. So there's your number 2 center.
That's a good move for them.
Great move for them. There's your number 2 center behind Trevor Zegras for the next 5 years.
Yep. And Dylan Strome's still out there. I know he's been tied to Buffalo through speculation. I still think Buffalo needs a second-line center, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I think so,
too. I think Casey Middlestad's a winger.
That, and just I just don't feel that Dylan Cousins, I mean, can he play the second-line center? Absolutely can be. 100%.
That should be his ceiling.
Could it be Peyton Krebs? Sure, it could be Peyton Krebs. He's bounced back and forth between center and the wing. He was drafted as a center. But for me, like when I think, and you might appreciate this, Ryan, is I look at Dylan Cousins, I see Michael Peckham, man. I see a checking line center with scoring ability who's going to go out there and make whoever is on that top line make their life a living hell. He's not going to give him an inch. He's going to, every time you come to the front of the net, he's going to make you feel it, and he's going to give them hell in front of their own net. That's when I see Dylan Cousins, and that's not a bad thing, that being a checking line center. Every team needs that. And I think he would thrive in that position. Thrive. But,
yeah.
For me, I almost wish we were 2 years more further into this, into what Kevin Adams is trying to do, because you see a guy like JT Miller available right now via trade. And granted, I hear the Canucks are asking for quite a bit, and rightfully so. He was almost a 100-point player, 99 points. At 31, if this team was 2 years more ahead into this rebuild, if that's what you want to call it, whatever Kevin Adams' plan is, which is working so far, I think a guy like JT Miller would make so much sense. But, I just don't.
Yeah, I agree.
I love the moves that Buffalo made today, especially when Toronto had such a terrible day. I like Eric Comrie. He's a good bridge to whoever you feel is the next guy in net for you, whether that's Devin Levi or Eric Portillo or a UPL, whoever it might be. I think he's a good bridge guy, along with another year of Craig Anderson. I'm assuming they'll probably give Craig, an opportunity to lose the net rather than, giving it to Comrie, the younger guy.
Start. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing at all. It's just out of respect, and a guy willing to play away from his family for another year. Also, a great follow, Nicole Anderson, his wife. She's always got a good tweet about her, AARP husband.
Yeah.
But and then Lyubushkin, I love that signing. I remember when people it was speculated like 2 months ago that Lyubushkin could be a guy the Sabres could target, but it was just purely speculation. And I said, you know what, man? Like, Lyubushkin is a guy, and he's a right-handed shot defenseman, a guy that I would not hate for Buffalo to sign, because A, he's going to play out with a chip on his shoulder every time he plays against Toronto, which is a team you're going to play a lot every single season. And B, like, he's kind of what you need, right? Like, he's a physical defenseman to stay at home. He's not an offensive presence. He's going to give you hell in front of your net, or in front of his own net if you try and, take liberties with the goaltender. He's a physical presence, not the greatest skater, no. But I feel that if he is slotted in at that second pairing over Yoki Haru, which is I think what they're bringing him to do, to be that guy opposite of Owen Power, I'm okay with that because I think that he is a guy that blue line has missed for a long time.
I agree. I completely agree. And the contract is very palatable. And they know what they're getting. This guy is like the definition of meat and potatoes. He is not going to dazzle you ever with his skating, his shooting, his passing, any of it. He is just a no nonsense. I'm going to run guys through the wall and separate them from the puck quickly and move it around the boards to Owen Power, to the guy who can cannon it out of the zone and put it right on Tage Thompson's tape. That's exactly what they do need. We've talked about this previously on the show. Like, they don't need any more skill on their blue line.
No.
Dahlin and to a lesser extent, Yoki Haru, and of course, Owen Power. There's like your skating, mobile, puck-moving guys, and Power and Dahlin are going to be power play fixtures for 15 years. You need a couple guys to pair with them that are going to smash people through the glass, rim the puck around the boards to the skill guy for a beautiful outlet feed and catch teams napping. And like Lyubushkin is as, again, meat and potatoes as it gets. And he loves to hit people, and he is never going to take a shift off physically. I don't think any Sabres fan is going to leave the rink or turn the TV off this year and go, boy, Lyubushkin, maybe he makes the odd mistake here and there, but like, I don't think anybody's ever going to walk away from a game going,
make us the worst team.
he absolutely doesn't make you a worse team. I think that he adds an element that's needed back there, especially with two young guys that love to grab the puck and rush up the ice. In Power and Dahlin, I think that he is like an ideal partner for Owen Power. The left-right thing. I think that he's a guy that no one's going to walk away from a game going, boy, he didn't try and the effort wasn't there. He's going to try and go through people's chest as often as he possibly can. And I think Sabres fans are going to love this guy.
And he plays an older school Buffalo style of hockey, the blue collar style,
very Tallinder-esque.
Yes. I mean, I think he's tougher than Tallinder personally.
I do too. But, yeah, for sure.
I think he's not afraid to drop the gloves. We've seen
Craig Rivet.
Yeah. Correct. That's not a terrible comparison. That is not a terrible comparison. I will give you that. That's not a bad comparison at all. I just think maybe he has a little bit more skill to his game. Granted, not a ton of it, but maybe a little bit more skill. I think the ceiling's a little bit higher than maybe Craig, and that's not a knock against Craig, because Craig was a very he was gifted offensively to an extent. So
he had a big shot.
Mean, hard-nosed guy, plays in front of his own net, plays well in his own end, takes care of the defensive zone first. That's what Craig was, and he was a good leader. Lyubushkin, I just love just seeing that grit and that jam. I know the analytics people hate hearing that grit. Like one of the analytics guys, I forget who it was. He tweeted out, "Oh, the grit crowd will love Lyubushkin. The grit people." It's like, I mean, first off, where do you get off? Kind of making light of people who care about that part of the game, because it matters. It does matter. Like, I would love to see you.
It does.
I would love to see you put on skates and try and go up against Ilya Lyubushkin one-on-one, because you know what's going to happen? He's going to put you through the boards.
Love to see the analytics on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see it, because
I love analytics. I do.
So
and like they're meaningful. It's just, this isn't baseball. Like, people have to remember that there is an element to a fast-moving, nonstop, free-flowing game where there's no out of bounds. It's an unpredictable sport, and you can look at analytics and get a pretty good picture of things from there and understand, things that you need to fix.
Yep.
But something that the analytics in hockey, at least, will never be able to quantify or calculate is how much a guy wants to get to a puck first over another guy in the third period with 3 minutes left with a 1-goal lead.
How often does, F1,
and I love analytics. I just want to say that.
Say, how often does F1 in a race for the puck see D1, maybe that's Lyubushkin, and know who that guy is and be like, you know what? No, I don't want to die today. I'll take the L here. Like, that happens in every single game. Even though it's professional hockey, it happens. And that's the type of factor guys like them bring. And that's why, I get it that the enforcer is no longer, a thing in the NHL, and, maybe it's better for the game. Sure. But you want to know what, man? I respect them so much. And the same person gave Rob Ray a ton of crap once. I think it was him. For when he saw it, when there was a fight during the game, so there was a place for us. There was a place. He's like, yeah, we get it, Ray. There was a place for you. It's not anymore. But like there was, and it was respected in that locker room because there was no other fucking guy in that locker room half the time willing to go out and do it.
Yeah,
when you have those guys in your team, the stupid shit that you see, it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen.
There was a time in the game where that was a real necessity. Like,
is it a necessity or no, it's not.
No, and that's
game.
And that's a natural evolution of a sport. I mean, look at like a sport like baseball. Like starting pitchers are like it used to be the norm where like your big horse at the top of the rotation pitched 230 innings plus a year. Almost no one does that now. Basically, no one's on pace to do it.
No.
Nobody pitches 230 innings now. You pitch 180 innings. Try and keep your pitch counts under 100 most nights. They're pulling guys in the 6th inning at 88 pitches. You know what I mean? It's now a bullpen sport, for better or worse. But that's what the sport has become now because the computers, baseball is analytics. Baseball is the analytics sport. Billy Bean, Moneyball, the whole deal, right? The sport has changed. The mound used to be higher. You know what I mean? In hockey, back in the day, you wanted a guy that could punch people's faces in and take people to task on the ice. Wayne Gretzky's teams had it. The Montreal Canadiens had it. The New York Islanders had it. Clark Gillies would send you through the glass. You needed guys like that. You just did. And I mean, to equate that to what the analytics-driven era in hockey is now is, I agree, a bit disrespectful because the game just wasn't like it is now. It's different, and to insinuate that they were lesser or not necessary based on the era they were in, they quite clearly were. Wayne Gretzky has been on record numerous times saying, I felt protected with Dave Semenko out there. When he got traded to LA, Gretzky demanded that McSorley get traded with him.
Yep.
There was a reason for that.
Yeah, 100%.
So when the great one turns around and says, I need this guy to come with me wherever I'm going for the time and the way the game was then, well, that's the ultimate respect, isn't it?
And you look at a guy like Tom Wilson for your Caps, right? Like, how often are liberties not taken during games? Granted, Tom Wilson is a bit of a unicorn because he has that offensive ability too. You don't really see that combination anymore. Kind of like Matthew Tkachuk. I think
if Tom Wilson was a free agent today, he would be a guy like
Kadri in the league is interested.
He'd be a guy like Kadri right now where a deal isn't done because so many teams are calling for him. Tom Wilson would be lined up at a hotel in downtown Toronto where he's from, and every single team would have a representative there putting a Duatang down in front of him. Like 100%. Because he is
blank checks everywhere. What do you want?
Because he is so unique, for better and worse. Tom Wilson has done some atrociously stupid stuff, but I mean, he's a top line winger with Ovechkin. He won a Stanley Cup, and was a big part of it. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not, he just was. He's the boogeyman.
Yep. There's things that these guys do that you don't see on charts or graphs. Like, how often are they engaging in physical battles? Can you find that on a chart or graph? No. How often are they winning the physical battles on the boards? Can you find that on a chart or graph? No. I made this point on the show a couple times back when Taylor Hall was a Buffalo Sabre. When Jack Eichel got hurt, he mailed it in. And he stopped engaging in front of the net. He did flybys. He didn't engage in physical battles along the boards.
But his zone exits were really good.
Huh?
His zone entries and exits were really good.
Yeah, they were great. But those parts of the game matter. If you aren't winning your board battles, if you aren't winning the battles in front of the net, if you're not putting the effort in, the kind of effort that Jeff Skinner puts in, that he doesn't get enough credit for, the beatings that guy takes and the antics that guy goes through, what that guy goes through and how much sometimes he's hated every time he's out on the ice. I mean, like, I'm sorry, you're just not going to win. And that's just that ability, as you stated here. How fucking bad do you want it? How fucking bad do you want it? And Jeff Skinner wants it fucking bad. And when Taylor Hall, he didn't want it after Jack got hurt because he knew he wasn't signed. He wasn't coming back. He knew he was going to be a Boston Bruin. That's why Buffalo only got a second-round pick for him, because they knew that was the only team Taylor Hall wanted to go to. And they had him. They had him up backed into a corner.
There's something to be said for the heart factor of it all, and that's just something that will never be quantifiable, right? And I mean, the best example that I could come up with, and the Buffalo faithful won't like it, I think I've made it before, the ultimate example of you can't see a guy's heart. And I mean, show me this guy's analytics. One of the most embarrassing draft combines in NFL history. Tom Brady.
Yep. Yeah.
And if the Patriots or anybody could have known, if there was a chart that could have shown the burning desire,
to win,
earn greatness and earn championships and earn a legendary status, he would have been the first overall pick that year.
Yep.
But there is no chart for that. No one, including the Patriots, who took a flyer on the guy in the 6th round, no one saw this coming.
Nope.
Nobody saw this coming. No one saw Henrik Lundqvist coming.
No.
No one saw Pavel Datsyuk coming.
Hasek was the best.
Hasek, great example.
People looked at Dominic Hasek and the way he played goalie, and they said, no.
It'll never work in the NHL. He's too erratic.
John Muckler recognized it, said this guy does whatever he can to stop a puck. He has that Tom Brady drive, or maybe Tom Brady had that Dominic Hasek drive. Whatever it took to stop the puck, whatever it did to win. And that's what Dominic Hasek had. You don't find that on a chart. You don't find that on a graph. Can't tell what's up here, and that matters so much. Like Don Granato said it in his speech at pre-development camp. He had all, or no,
I saw that. Yeah.
No, it wasn't development camp. It was a USA hockey thing, and it was all the players from the U.S. development program. And he said, "We know you're good enough to get there. We know you're good enough here. The skill's here. I've seen it. It's just good ones. Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing?
Will you pay the price?
Whatever it takes." And you can't find that on a graph. And one of these days, man, I haven't given up on writing, but I haven't written in a really long time. I really want to sit down with Andrew Peters and ask him, just, hey, man, like, you used to be you were a 2nd-round pick. You were a good player in minor hockey. Like, you weren't a bad hockey player, coming up before the rule changes kind of skewed everything, and you were asked to do something that maybe you weren't used to doing. I want to know what it was like, the nerves and the anxiety of doing what you were asked to do every single night. And did you feel appreciated? I know he felt appreciated because he did. I know those players in Buffalo appreciated what he did. And it's just not respected at all enough by people like the person I'm, referring to. And it's just like, it's not respected by them because you can't find it on a graph. You can't find it on a chart. It's just like, you don't understand because you've never been in a locker room, man. You don't understand what it's like to know that guy is on your team and he has your back no matter what. Granted, every player on your team should have each other's back.
Well,
but
yeah.
That guy is going to go into an alley with you, and he's gonna swing at anything that moves, and he is gonna protect you with every ounce of every bone in his body. He's gonna put it all on the line for you, and that's what guys like Ray and Peters and May and Barnaby were. Man, they were willing to sacrifice everything for their team. You're not going to find that on the chart.
I think if you, and again, like, I value the information that's available in analytics. It's not like, again, I hope nobody is taking this as like, we're old men yelling at clouds. We're not. It's just that, I do think some people rely on them a little too much, and there does need to be a mix of, in a sport like hockey. Like baseball, it makes perfect sense. Baseball is a sport built around the same event happening over and over and over again. It's literally a mouse falling on a mousetrap over and over and over. It's quantifiable. The math makes sense. Batting averages, hot zones in the strike zone, all of it. It makes a lot of sense.
Moneyball, you know.
It makes a lot of sense. That's why teams like that athletics team could win in a sport like baseball.
Yep.
Because they saw guys that were mathematically undervalued and the math fit the sport and made total sense. Hockey doesn't lend itself as well to being holistically reliant on that information. I mean, another great example of it is that great doc that we all saw, the rivalry, the Avalanche Red Wings thing.
Phenomenal,
Both those teams, I bet you if you went back and tracked their analytics, were incredible. But when you listen to Yzerman and Shanahan and Sakic and Forsberg talk about those days, they all go, yeah, we needed Chris Draper. We needed Darren McCarty. We needed all those, you know, tough guy, Adam Foote on Colorado. We needed those guys, you know, Yui Krupp. You know, we needed those guys.
Law and Osgood, man. Like, they were willing to go to war. It was great.
100% they were, weren't they? Yeah. It's just a thing where when you look at certain guys and what they do or don't do analytically, it's easy to get caught up in seeing a graph of something and a chart, and you see this evidence of this aspect of a game, but it does in a sport like hockey leave out a lot of relevant information that's still relevant to the game, and it's still a physical game. As long as checking is allowed, Duane, that's going to be still an element. If they get rid of hitting, then the analytics will be the most prominent evaluator of every team. But with the way the sport is played and the frenetic pace of it, it can't be the be all end all. It needs to be part of your organization. You got to have this information and make decisions
100%.
with it, but you can't just have a team of guys with good looking zone exits. You want them.
Team that's ever won a cup, that ever will win a cup, in a physical, checking, fighting league, where every single player in that team was brought in for an analytic reason. It's just not possible. I shouldn't say it's not possible, but you know what analytics does? It gives you a read, and it tells you things about a player that normally maybe you don't recognize with the eye test.
How did the Montreal Canadiens get to a cup final 2 years ago?
Carey Price.
Yeah, Carey Price. But Carey Price didn't score goals, and he didn't run people through the end wall. They outworked a lot of good teams. They outworked them.
Shea Weber was playing through so much pain, man.
Analytically, the Toronto Maple Leafs should have swept the Montreal Canadiens and won 5-0, 6-2 every game. Analytically speaking, that's what should have happened.
Montreal wanted it more.
They outworked them,
man. It's facts.
They outworked them.
They absolutely. You know, analytically, you could have all those numbers and all those graphs and all those charts, you know, right in front of you, and it all makes sense on paper. But at the end of the day, you have to have that it factor, that Tom Brady factor, that Dominic Hasek factor. Do whatever it takes. Take the beating. Go into the corners. Go into the boards. Go to the front of the net. You know, don't do flybys. You know, the things that you can't read. And as long as it's a physical league, these things are, you know, again, analytics is you're looking through your own lens, and you know I respect it. I do it, and I think any coach should have an analytics team because it is information on players that maybe you just wouldn't recognize with the eye test. What outside, like zone entries, zone exits.
It's extremely valuable. Like
their Corsi, their Fenway, like all that stuff. It's so valuable.
We're not saying it's extremely valuable when you look at really fine details in terms of like this guy does really well against right-handed centers in faceoffs.
Yep.
So that is something you'd consider maybe on a power play where you're lining up and going, we've got a right-handed center that does great against lefties or righties in faceoffs, we'll put him in there. That's why you see a lot of teams like the Caps do it quite a bit on the power play. TJ Oshie takes a lot of draws on the right-hand side because he's right-handed and he can reach in and scoop the puck back and like win faceoffs. It's not Backstrom or Kuznetsov doing it. That's analytically driven 100%. Boy, Oshie's winning a lot of draws against left-handed centers on his offhand. Let's let him take faceoffs on that side. Works same way with the penalty kill. That's a fine detail of the game, a faceoff in one particular dot against a certain kind of handedness, where that's a really fine detail that analytics is extremely valuable. Just as an example, this defenseman off faceoff wins on the power play gets shots through 86% of the time. Valuable information. Let's put that defenseman on the first power play. He's getting a ton of shots through.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that defenseman is going to outwork a forward in the corner in their own zone with 3 minutes left with a 1-goal lead and not get beat to the puck. That ends up in the back of your net. That's the stuff that you can't quantify, and it does matter. It does.
It does.
And so do the numbers.
Speaking of Nazem Kadri, before we end, it's been one of my favorite episodes in a while. Nazem Kadri, where do you think he ends up?
So obviously Calgary has some money now, but I don't feel like he's going to end up there. Seattle is a player here. Like if he wants to cash in, Seattle has more than, the space to accommodate his financial needs. And I hope Naz does get paid. I mean, the guy deserves it.
There's a guy that deserves it. It's him.
I heard
Toronto,
Jamie McLennan talking a lot on the TSN free agent coverage today about how he would love to see Kadri in Washington. Me too. The only thing there is, what is the future definitively of Nick Backstrom? And we don't know. Mm-hmm. I'll say this. They could do it if Nick Backstrom was put on permanent LTIR and eventually retired, which I do fear because Nick Backstrom's my favorite player ever. I love Nick Backstrom. I would happily do anything to make him healthy. But I'll say this. That's the only way that they could do it. Would Kadri fit in really well with the Caps? Absolutely. Could you imagine a team with Tom Wilson and Kadri on the same team? Oh my God, the chaos. Just rename the arena Suspension Center. Like, that would be so gross. And I think he would look really great on their power play too, playing with his old nemesis Ovi. They've had a number of run-ins over the year.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But it would take Nick Backstrom basically never playing hockey again. And a couple weeks ago, Brian McClellan said the intent was to have Nick come back at some point this year. That's probably looking more like January, February. And if Nick genuinely wants to do it, then I support it. I'll say this, though. Nick did just have the same hip resurfacing surgery that Ryan Kessler had, and Ryan Kessler never came back. Yeah. So I don't think Kadri ends up in Washington, but if it comes out in a couple days that Backstrom is being put on LTIR and retiring, then they jump to the more front part of the list. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be Seattle. I think Seattle has the money and are trying to build something there that maybe he's potentially interested in. I just have a sneaking suspicion that Seattle is going to get him. And I don't really know why. I don't know where else he can go. Long term, the Rangers cannot afford to give him the term he's going to want.
Could it be Calgary?
Calgary could. I just don't think he wants to go to Calgary. I could be wrong. I'm just trying to think. Like, where else?
I think they're willing to overpay him just to keep Matthew Tkachuk happy.
Maybe. Is it the Islanders? Like, do the Islanders find
money to spend? They have money to spend.
They were trying to get Goudreau. Is it the Islanders? He knows Lou. I don't know. Seattle's my bet.
that's a good. I mean, that's good.
Seattle's my bet. I'm sticking with that.
I'm gonna go with Calgary or the Island. Personally, I think the Island makes sense. Like you said,
they make a lot of sense.
And that'll make one guy I know really happy if he does end up in on the Island. But John Klingberg.
I guess that he was having some pretty positive negotiations with Dallas.
Yeah. Like he's in Dallas.
Which is surprising given that it seemed to sound as though he was like desperate to get out of there. I think that he'll re-sign in Dallas, and if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Calgary tried to get him.
Calgary would make sense, but I think personally, my prediction he'll stay in Dallas.
I think he will too.
I think
he will too.
Money for him, and he's worth it to a certain. Depending on term, he's worth it.
I wonder if the Devils wouldn't be a player too. The PK Subban, the PK Subban money's gone.
Defenseman, man, and that could make sense.
Pair him up with Ty Smith. You never know, right?
And last but not least, Palat.
Yeah, that one is like I genuinely have no idea. I think if Patrice Bergeron doesn't come back, I think he is such a Boston Bruin.
Mm-hmm. He plays that style.
I feel like Bergeron will come back, though.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what that contract looks like, that might be dicey. I really feel like the Islanders are gonna push for him. They've lost out now on Gaudreau, who they were allegedly heavily, involved with. If they don't get a Kadri, I feel like Boston or the Islanders are a great landing spot for Palat.
I think he ends up on one of the 3 New York teams. I don't know which one, but I think he ends up in New York.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The Rangers are going to make noise. No more Strome.
Mm-hmm.
And the Devils have plenty of money to play with, too.
Why would you say the Devils? Why? I said 3 New York teams.
Well, I mean, if you're talking Buffalo, yeah,
they have the cap.
I actually think Buffalo would be pretty attractive, actually, if I'm Palat too. It's just how much rebuilding are you willing to put up with for a couple years? Because I don't think Buffalo is that far away from being really competitive.
I think they're competitive next year, depending on how their goaltending pans out.
That's the one thing, right? So if you're Palat, is it like, well, the Islanders had a down year, maybe I fit in there. Boston's Boston. Do they still have one more go in them? It'd be something to consider. I wouldn't be shocked, let's just say, if the Sabres were in play for him.
I think he ends up on a New York team and honestly flip a coin, a couple, however you want to do it.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I just really have no read. I don't know, something about him feels like a Boston Bruin. I don't know why, but yeah. New York, it seems like a pretty good landing spot for him.
Before we take off here, I just want to plug the hockey tournament that I am organizing here in Buffalo to help support the families of the families affected by the May 14th mass shooting in Buffalo. Buffalo Strong Street Hockey Tournament. Right now, tentatively scheduled for the weekend of the 27th to 28th of August. Might get pushed back into September, the second week of the Bills season when Bills play on Monday night. So, Bills fans wouldn't get affected by that. It'd be Saturday, Sunday. We will see. There's a lot of moving parts to this that we're still trying to figure out, but they've been garnering a lot of interest. So please, if you are interested in registering a team, registering as a free agent, volunteering or donating, please DM me either at my own personal handle at Buff Strong Hockey, BUF Strong Hockey, or email buffalostronghockey@yahoo.com. Just go find. Easiest way is to go find me on Twitter at Duane S39, as you can see on the screen there, and I'll direct you and I'll get you squared away. But all proceeds, after obviously we cover cost to run the tournament, will be going to the families of those affected by the May 14th shooting. And again, we'd appreciate anybody's support, either as a volunteer, a donation, or just registering a player or as a free agent or a team. So I just wanted to give that a quick plug before we head out here. Ryan, you got anything else?
Not much. I mean, I'm interested to see where some of these big names end up landing, and it's going to be an interesting offseason. There's going to be some trades. There's going to be some wild stuff going on. It's a great time to be a sports fan right now, especially an NHL fan. So there's more to come. You can check out my show, Instigating, easy to find, Instigating with Clark and Drury. We're on social media at Instigating Pod. You can follow me as well. My Twitter handle's there at cknx_Drury. And I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming OHL season, getting back into the rink and calling Guelph Storm games. It's going to be an exciting year of major junior hockey. It's going to be great.
Yep. Well, that's it for me. Like I said, this has been one of my favorite episodes in a while. Ryan, I'm glad you stuck through with me. Hour and 45 minutes. So with that being said, this has been episode 104 of Two Goalies, One Mic. For Cully, I am Duane. Ryan Drury from the Instigators podcast. You can find him on Twitter at cknx_Drury. Great follow. One of my favorite co-hosts to have on this show. Always comes in clutch for me. And, I will talk to you guys, hopefully, maybe even tomorrow. We'll see, see how day 2 goes. But a lot of big names out there still, as we speculated, where they will end up. So, Ryan, thanks for hopping on, man. Remember, this has been brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case in Western New York on Georgia Boulevard. Make sure you get over there and tell them the guys from Two Goalies, One Mic sent you. Ryan, thanks for hopping on with me, bud.
You bet, man. Anytime.
Yeah, you guys enjoy your night.